right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Digital Manufacturing Talks. My name is Tyler Fenhouse. I'm the marketing manager for Symphony AI Industrial. We've got a great informational talk lined up for you today, named Managing KPIs from Shop Floor to Top Floor. As you may know, Symphony AI Industrial is a leader in industrial AI solutions in digital manufacturing, plant performance and optimization, and connected worker. Symphony AI Industrial is a Symphony AI vertical. There are several Symphony AI verticals. You can see them there on your screen right now. And we are one of the largest, if not the largest, enterprise AI companies with more than 1,600 customers and 3,000 employees. We are presenting on the Teams platform, and we have a large audience this morning, so you will be muted throughout the entire presentation. But Poojan, our presenter, he still wants your questions. You can type them right into the chat, and at the end of the presentation, Poojan is going to answer them right here live. So make sure you are typing those in as we go along. Also be on the lookout for poll questions. We'll be asking a handful of those throughout the presentation. It'll kind of guide where the presentation goes. So make sure you're typing those in as well. All right, you did not come to this meeting to hear me talk the entire time, so I'm going to hand it off to Poojan, and we're going to get this talk started. Go ahead, Poojan.
Great. Thank you, Tyler, and good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. So just to introduce myself before, obviously, we get into the meat of it. So I'm Poojan Gilani. I'm a senior product manager here at Symphony. Been with the company nearly 2.5 years now. I've got a background in systems engineering, in IIoT, and also helped start a IoT and AI vertical within an existing business in the power sector in India and the Asia region. And then previously, I've got experience again on product management, program management, as well as really getting into the weeds with manufacturing experience in the United States as well. All right, so today we're going to be talking about KPI 360, right? And really how we're managing KPIs from the shop floor to the top floor. But really what we want to do is take a step back and really understand the motivation or the motivating factors for why this is important, right? And why this being is the industrial operations intelligence solution that we have, that we believe is really there to address key challenges, but then also really make available certain opportunities in terms of how we can help provide a product, a solution that can help really eliminate and really kind of streamline your business as well. And of course, we'll end it really with an introduction into our product called KPI 360 and really what it's designed to do as well, right? So we'll take our first poll question. So Tyler, if you have that up.
All right, yeah, go ahead. We got a poll question right out the gate. Just to kick things off, the poll question is, do you have a data analytics advanced analytics data transformation initiative in your organization? Go ahead and just click to vote and then submit, and we will get going here. Yes, for many years, just started. No, but planning to start. No, and no plans at the moment. Go ahead. It looks like the majority of you have voted. I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds. All right, so it's looking, I'm not sure if you can see the results there, Poojan, but it's looking like 18% yes for many years, 27% no plans at the moment, and yes just started 55%, and 0% no but planning to start. So great.
Great, thank you. So that's again quite typical of what we see. It's nice to see that at least or nearly 3/4 of you have really started to use analytics and data as well, right? And really, so that kind of leads us off into why this is important, or why it's really getting important now, right? And really, there's three key aspects to this. The first, of course, is the exponential growth in computing and computing power, right? And this, of course, I think we've all heard about, or most of you would have heard about ChatGPT and LLMs, and really the possibilities that has, it is providing. And the reasons why it's even possible to do today is really because, or one of the reasons really is because of computing power, right? So the availability of GPUs, but really the exponential growth that we've had since really the 70s and 80s as well. In addition to that, and which is, I think, the second key piece of this is really on the telecommunications front. So of course we've gone from edge or older technologies to really 4G, 5G, etc. as well, right? And so that being aside, the ability to actually to have increased bandwidth, latency, increased payload sizes, etc., for example, has really allowed the ability to transfer data, remotely or through cables as well. But really, that sharing, that exchange, and obviously hence that storage becomes extremely critical in being a second key driver for really this uptick in adoption of newer technologies that we're seeing. And of course, in the industrial workspace, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is really the availability of sensors and instrumentation, right? So, partly, of course, it's the availability in terms of what it's able to capture and measure, of course. But then, of course, it's also the cost factor, right? A significant aspect of it, right? And over the years, right? Again, since going back to probably even the early 2000s or so, sensor costs have reduced significantly. Their capabilities have increased significantly as well. Now, really, in addition to kind of these three key blocks, you've also got the advancement or rapid advancement, I should say, of AI and ML, right? And really what that boils down to is how we're able to use and harness the power of statistics with or math with the previous slide that I mentioned, right? To really be able to provide descriptions, diagnoses, prediction, prescription as well, but really provide it essentially in a context that we would be able to want and require it, where we actually can make sense of it as well. And so in a sense, right, what we've been able to do now, with the advancement of AI and ML models, is really extract significantly more value from the same pieces of equipment with better instrumentation at times, definitely better computing and improved communication technologies as well. Now, outside of the two technological kind of motivators behind some of this, it's really the business goals, right? So what is that business case for really driving towards industrial analytics and really advanced industrial analytics, right? So the world's changing obviously in a rapid pace, and we're constantly trying to find ways to either improve the top line or the bottom line, right? Which means that we want to improve revenues or costs, or obviously both in terms of margins as well. And how we're doing that, which is really the operational case in terms of setting targets, setting goals, having different ways to manage those goals, but then importantly, also manage risks along with it as well. And of course, a very key topic of communication, for the last few years, really is this emerging trend that we're seeing even with a lot of our customers, is the reduction in carbon emissions and the consciousness of improvement in the environmental factors and ratings as well, right? So we'll pause here and have a quick poll question for you.
All right. Second poll question. Go ahead and take a look. You can mark multiple options. Which of the following are the challenges you have faced or are currently facing with your data analytics system? Mark all that apply. Not applicable. You haven't used a data analytics system. Data quality issues. Unable to generate relevant insights for all stakeholders. Lack of collaboration between stakeholders or cultural barriers, and end users unable to understand the analytics, and other. Okay, so go ahead and click to vote. It looks like a good number of you have. Vote if you have not yet. And again, you can click multiple. Looks like we have about half the room. I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds. All right, so Pujan, so 7% not applicable, 33% data quality issues, 20% unable to generate relevant insights for all stakeholders, 20% lack of collaboration, 7% cultural, 7% end users, and 7% other. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. And so it's again interesting to see that again nearly 75% have really focused on, I think, the three biggest challenges, right? Which is data quality, generating insights, and then obviously the lack of collaboration as well. And it's actually interesting, that we've looked at that. Because really, it's exactly what we've seen across several of our customers as well, right? So typical issues in terms of data quality, right? So having data in let's say silos, for example, but also having the availability of clean data sets that you can access repeatably, programmatically, is obviously one of the challenges that does exist. Importantly, and I think this is perhaps a little bit more on the cultural side, similar to again what the feedback was in the poll as well, was it really in terms of getting buy-in from different stakeholders, right? So different functions of the business, different regions, different geographies, and really, navigating some of those challenges around as well. And then importantly, right, delivering insights, from this data that we're actually collecting as well, right? So do we have the right information? Do we have the right data, right? Do we have the right folks, that are skilled enough or tooled enough, right, to actually deliver or extract insights from that? And importantly, right, are all of these really repeatable kind of processes, right? How much of a manual effort really is it, right? Now, in general, why these are challenges, and again, from what we've heard of from some of our customers as well, again, right? So data quality, it wasn't used until recently, which means that now there is just a greater focus on data that typically is available, within disparate systems or applications you might be running, or just data silos that would exist as well. In terms of getting buy-in, there is typically, a tendency, of course, right? Just given day-to-day pressures of delivery and hitting the numbers for that week, that month, and that quarter, at times there is a tendency to also focus on kind of the local problem versus that global kind of business or organizational level challenge as well, right? And then, of course, right, in terms of insights, it's really about understanding the context, right? Which means being able to understand the business, the market, the people, the process to actually again generate and deliver insights from it. And that's really where we believe industrial operation in intelligence, becomes important, right? So again, if you take a step back and just think through the typical stack that does exist today. So really, you've got oops, I just locked my screen. There we go. So if you take a look at the typical stack today, you've got the OT layer, so your PLCs, DCS systems, historians, etc. And then, of course, you've got your IT layer as well, right? So your ERPs, your CMMS, and other tooling like this, right? Which is exists today, has been used, for decades now, right? But really, what we're now trying to add over here, and what you'll see, there's a lot of buzz around now, right, in terms of how you can create intelligence, really leveraging the IT and OT systems that you already have, right? And for this, there are some very specialized tool sets, right, or applications, right? So it could be for specifically looking at process optimization. It could be looking at asset performance management or maintenance, predictive maintenance or manufacturing operations management, right? So again, they're looking at specific challenges and use cases within the existing business, which again could be for a component, it could be for an asset, for a process, or maybe even just within your supply chain as well, on the inbound and the outbound side as well. Now, typically, right, where you've had business intelligence tools or BI tools, they've typically sat somewhere between that IT and the intelligence layer. So they were touted to really help and enable businesses to really take it to that next level in terms of aggregating this data. But of course, there were some typical challenges, right? And a lot of those challenges that we, I think, spoke about in the previous slide do really still hold true in the typical BI tools that you do have and you do see today. What we're trying to do, of course, is really build out analytics, leveraging not just the IT and OT layer and perhaps some of the KPIs, for example, that you may have and on the BI layer, but importantly, also leverage the intelligence from those specialized systems solving specific use cases, right? So it really is an overarching theme to provide operational intelligence for operational excellence, right? By leveraging again the different tools and applications that you do have, which means that you could be looking at use cases across a broad spectrum of functions. So, specifically, you could be looking at things like supply chain, so logistics and supply and demand, forecasting, for example. It could be on HR with employees and training, for example. It could be on the operational or the manufacturing side, with things like OEE and forecasting for, let's say, efficiency, right? So again, different applications for this, right? Now, typically, a BI tool does actually differ from an operational intelligence tool as well, right? So if you think about it, and I think this image, it's highly pixelated, but I think it does an incredible job of actually communicating what operational intelligence really is, right? So where BI tools are typically looking at lagging metrics or really looking at the rearview mirror for how you've done, in the past day, in the past week, the past month, the past quarter, and really, year on year, right? But that's really where operational intelligence is really trying to help you navigate and look out into the future, right? So, for example, where you're looking at historical data in the BI case, in the OI case, you're typically going to be looking at AI models that are leveraging real-time data and running AI models on top of it to again provide those insights, provide those forecasts as well. Which means that you're not just generating report based on existing data or yesterday's or historical data, but it's actually dynamic in nature. So the KPIs, the numbers, the data does change based on how you're actually you're doing in real time and how your business is actually trending or tending today and this very minute, right? Importantly, you're going from typically descriptive dashboards, which again is providing things like, hey, root cause analysis, or you do a phi why for why certain things happened, as opposed to now on OI tools getting your typical predictive, prescriptive, and prognostic insights as well. Which means that all of this is really meant and designed on the OI side to provide you a proactive approach to take those proactive actions, which are data driven through insights that AI models are generating. Of course, without and keeping in mind, not getting rid of the typical lagging indicators or KPIs that you would be having as well, right? So with that, I'll pause and we'll take another quick poll, just to kind of make sure that we've captured that concept.
All right, we are on to our third poll. Go ahead and just click to vote and then submit. What is the difference between business intelligence, BI, and operational intelligence, OI? So no difference, they're the same thing. BI is a subset of OI, OI is a subset of BI, or they are different things entirely. So go ahead and click to vote. Looks like about half of you have, so go ahead and get your responses in. I'm going to leave it open for a couple more seconds. And again, this will kind of guide where Poojan goes with this presentation. Go ahead and click to vote. One more second. All right, so it looks like 29%, 0% believe there is no difference. 29% BI is a subset of OI, 14% OI is a subset of BI, and 57% say they are different things entirely. Back to you, Poojan.
All right. Well, so it's I guess one is it's nice to see that there is, folks do see that there is clearly a distinction between the two of them, right? What we now do is maybe just explore this thought a little bit more, right? So for KPIs, right? Typically, the way we've done them and the way we want to do them, whether in the BI world and now the OI world as well, is really have not just quantitative indicators, so things like again time series data, for example, that you would be using, for actually managing and maintaining your business and tracking really how you're doing, but really have qualitative indicators as well, right? Importantly, outside of having these lagging indicators that we were talking about, which is, past 24 hours, past week, past month, you're really looking out into the future as well. And of course, there is a degree of confidence that you do have it for. So typically, the further you look out, it might be at a lower confidence, but it's still providing you an insight for how that the system is predicted to perform. And that system could be, again, it could be a function, it could be a grouping of KPIs that you may have. It could be a grouping of assets, for example, really variety of different indicators like that, right? Importantly, right, each of these indicators have, or KPIs do have certain inputs and outputs. There is critical calculation that we're actually doing. And typically with BI tools, one of the challenges, right, has been, or one of the, I think, constraints really has been in the types of calculations you can actually perform, right? If it's your basic arithmetic operators, for example, that might be possible to do. But the moment you're getting into, deep, physics-based calculations, for example, or thermodynamic calculations, for example, that you want to do, that's really where there are certain challenges that do appear, and obviously that is the constraint, right? And of course, when you're actually choosing KPIs and selecting them as to which ones you'd want to have as well, really you want to make sure that you're picking those which are providing you certain important insights, which are not only indicating kind of which direction, but also what the value is in terms of how important or how urgent an action needs to be taken as well. So taking these, right, let's kind of look into how a day in the life typically, let's say for someone who's tracking KPIs, which again I'm sure a lot of you would be. So typically, let's say you'd log in and you'd see all of your KPI screen and you say, hey, great, nothing to really worry about at the moment, until of course you get that alert, right? Or you obviously are scanning the dashboard and you do see a notice, a alert, for example, on a dashboard, or this warning indicator that you might have. Now, what the kind of clear next step that you would want to take is really check what is driving that, right? So for example, if it's an alert, you'd obviously want to see, hey, what is the issue? What's the root cause? How is this really going to look in the next, let's say, 8 hours or 24 hours? And really, what is the trend, and what is the visualization for this actually looking like, right? And of course, right, in some cases, it might be a simple decision that an individual can take. At times, it does require, the focused effort of a team to typically actually come out and identify or discuss the problem, and then again speak through those root causes, weigh the pros and cons before actually deciding to act, and then obviously taking that decision, acting, of course. And then, of course, you would want all of your KPIs to be green as well, right? Now, this is, of course, in a kind of utopia, right? If I can call it that. But really, this is really a challenge at this point, right? And some of which we obviously spoke about previously with the typical challenges that you do see with data, right? But really, there is additional challenges here as well, right? So, for example, with having you know tools and applications that have this cross-domain knowledge, right? Now, typically, for example, let's say you wanted to know how compressor efficiency might impact demand, which actually might impact your top line, your margins, and then ultimately your budget estimates as well, in terms of how your business is going to be performing, right? And that sometimes is not just a very clear-cut answer. It does require specific groups of people, folks, analysts, for example, would need to actually drill down into some of this data. Sometimes it is manual as well, and then actually report on it, right? Which means that it's time consuming. It is obviously something that can't be done very often, right? So again, would be done every week or every quarter, for example, right? So again, those are some of the challenge, or that is one of the challenges that does exist in why we can't really get there. The other one, and I think several of you actually, mentioned this in the poll as well, which is the availability of data, which today sits distributed across in different applications and different systems, and really the lack of an enterprise level data lake, right? And that is really a limiting factor, right? And there are certain architectural kind of questions and challenges that do need to be solved there as well. But that really is one of the limiting factors why we're not able to get that state that I mentioned in the previous slide. Now, importantly, once you do the first two, and let's say those were not challenges, then of course you've got to have something which is configurable, highly configurable for that matter, in terms of, let's say, typical user personas, right? So what, for example, would a dashboard look like for a reliability engineer versus, let's say, the COO or maybe even the CFO, right? And how are they really going to differ? And really, that really does play a lot into the other two challenges that we've spoken about as well, right? So having that cross-domain knowledge, having that availability of data, really is what is contributing significantly to those challenges, right? But that's really where the opportunity does lie, and that's what we've identified today, which is how is it that we're able to make sense or really collate all of this data that does exist in different systems, different applications, in your environment at your enterprise level, and then importantly, right, how is it that we can use and leverage AI, right, to actually provide insights, provide leading indicators, provide forecasts, provide that root cause analysis automatically to users, specifically to certain functions and groups and user personas as well. And the reason to do this is because, of course, you want to help and enable the ability to make and take those proactive decisions, right? Um, and this, of course, is really meant and designed to be able to leverage the experts for their expertise, right? Which is not it would not be, for functional folks, for example, it would not be, in terms of managing data or creating PowerPoint presentations or Excel and pivot tables, etc., but really is in the process, in the assets, in the operations, whether it's again within the plant, outside of the plant, and really then rolling up into a higher enterprise level operational excellence process as well. And the ability to do all of this, right, is what a critical opportunity is that we've identified, and really trying to provide through our product, right, which is how you'd be able to manage KPIs from the shop floor to the top floor to give folks the right information in their hands so they can take those decisions as well. Now, KPI 360, right? And that's really what we've been kind of building this up towards. So KPI 360 is our take. It's our bet that we're taking on industrial operations intelligence, right? And I think the important aspect here is addressing a lot of the challenges that, not only did I mention in the previous few slides, because that, of course, was scripted, but I think importantly, from what we heard from you in the polls and the poll responses as well, right? So, for example, to actually get that real-time monitoring across the enterprise, to actually then identify how you can improve your operational performance, using AI, using ML, and using and leveraging the technologies that we do have available. And really, from a setup standpoint, how do we make it easy, right? So how do we make sure that you can really connect to any standard typical data source that you do have, to reduce that time to value by leveraging and providing to you our pre-built libraries, which typically is something that you can use for very typical KPIs across several industries that we currently operate in. But then importantly, KPIs that you can also build and configure, right? So I spoke about, let's say, having engineering calculations, right? So physics or thermodynamics, and being able to do that within a simple, easy to use, no code UI, right? And talking about the UI, being able to configure these dashboards for different user personas that do exist in your enterprise as well. So you could think of it as actually at being, easy enough for folks that haven't or aren't too comfortable using applications and using technologies. So typically the digital non-natives, but really where they can use and leverage our drag and drop capabilities to build and configure these dashboards, similar to the example that you're actually seeing right here on the screen as well, right? So for example, with having a card layout, colored based on certain thresholds. They could be based on rules that you might set. It could be based on forecasts that would be available. It could be based on alerts that you might have. But then also having the ability to actually drill down to identify certain trends, get specific insights for how certain metrics or KPIs are actually trending, and then really being able to navigate really from kind of vertically and then horizontally across your organization as well through different features that we do provide as well. Now, talking, about, I think the pre-built libraries and the time to value, right, which again is one of the most critical aspects, right? If you had all the time in the world and you could just take a pause on running your enterprise, maybe you could actually do that already, right? Which is you have the data sources. Yes, it does stay in silos, but maybe you might still be able to do it. You would still be able to build out dashboards and configure it for certain user personas. But the reality is, right, that that we don't have all the time in the world, right? We want to take quick steps, quick action, and we want to do that, and we want to get value out of systems as soon as possible. So that's really where we have pre-built libraries for KPIs at different levels of the enterprise. So it really could be looking at the component level, so specific, things like motors or pumps, right? Feeding up into feeding up into things such as larger assets, so chillers, for example, heat exchangers, for example, or then rolling up, right, multiple groups of assets across a plant. Maybe it's across several plants where you can then actually look at KPIs and define these KPIs at a system level as well. And these, of course, what I'm showing on the screen right here are specifically to certain, asset specific or engineering specific calculations, but really it does have the ability to configure KPIs and calculate them based on a wide variety of inputs that you may want to provide it as well, right? So again, depending on how you configure it, using not just your basic arithmetic or inequalities, but then also you could use, let's say, if-else statements and loops and whatnot as well. So again, just depends on how you want to configure it, where you can leverage a lot of those capabilities. So really, in summary, right? Advanced industrial analytics, is being explored. From what I did see in the poll questions earlier today, and really there is an interest where enterprises are starting to look into it. But really, it's just scratching the surface, right? And obviously, the reason for that is really the challenges that do exist today. And I think we've hammered on a lot of the challenges that you do see and you have faced as well, where you've mentioned it. But really, that's where there is a significant opportunity. And so that's really where our industrial operational intelligence solution, KPI 360, is really that critical piece to help you unlock value to truly connect the shop floor to the top floor. And really, that's again vertically, but it's also meant to do that horizontally as well. And the ability to do this, or one of the kind of prerequisites to be able to do this, is to have that cross-domain knowledge, to have configurable, accessible, extensible software as well, where you can actually have dashboards that you can build for specific user personas. You can have folks that want to just get one cockpit view every day they walk in, versus other folks that may be actually managing their operations hour to hour with KPIs as well, right? And then, of course, we introduced KPI 360 to you as really the application and the toolkit that you would need to actually kickstart your operations intelligence journey, right? What we believe, in having several discussions with lots of our customers as well, is KPI 360 is a key tool to actually help you get started and really help you in the path of digital transformation. So it doesn't really matter where you are in this path, or where you are on the journey as well. You could be really at the beginning, which is you're just starting to digitize some of the information, or you really could be a lot more advanced and further down, where you're already leveraging a lot of the AI capabilities that are out there available. But really, KPI 360 is meant and designed to use a lot of the intelligence applications in the intelligence layer, like we spoke about, but then also the IT and OT systems that do exist today as well. So with that, we'll take our last poll question before we open it out to questions.
All right, fantastic, Pujan. One last question. Go ahead and click to vote, submit, and then, like Pujan said, he will be taking questions live right here. So make sure you're typing those into the chat. But before that, do you currently have an industrial operations intelligence system that connects the shop floor to the top floor? And do you see a need for it? You have a system and there is a need. You have a system, but there is no need. You don't have a system, but there is a need. You don't have a system and there is no need. So go ahead and click to vote, and then, like I said, get your questions in, and Pujan is going to answer them right here. Looks like a quarter of you have voted. Go ahead and vote. Someone did ask in the chat if this recording is going to be available. And yes, once we close up shop here, I will export the video. I'll get that YouTube link. So anybody that wants a recording, make sure you throw that in the chat as well, so I can get those links out to you, or someone from our organization, maybe Pujan himself will get that to you. But if you want the recording, go ahead and put that in there. All right, so let's see what the response is. Okay, so it looks like 30, well, we're kind of split across the board. 0% say they don't have a system and there's no need, but 33% split all the way across for the other three responses. So looks like you attended the right webinar if if that's the case. Go ahead and get those votes in, Pujan. I'm just going to take over the screen for a second, and we're going to wait for people to get a couple more questions in. And I'm just going to do a plug about our future webinars, if I can pull this up. So you just attended our famous digital manufacturing talks, and we have a lot of talks scheduled all the way to December. We have one every week. It is the same time. It's always on a Thursday, and it's always at the same time, but we are covering topics that pertain to plant performance, digital manufacturing, and the connected worker. You see that Pujan has another one here on August 31st, and you might want to see that one. But we've got something for everybody. So if you want to see what we have coming down the pipeline, all you need to do is go to symphonyindustrial.ai, go to resources, drop down to webinars, and you can see what we've got going on, and you can register right there on the page. Okay, so that being said, Pujan, I'm not sure if you can see the chat. I think you can. Looks like we just have a couple requests for the recording. Oh, there are some up there. Go ahead and you can respond to them.
Sure. So I do see a comment that, poor data quality was always there, but it was just not picked up due to lack of visibility in real time. And I think that's an excellent point. That's definitely what we, encounter and what we hear from a lot of our customers as well, which is data does exist. There is a tremendous amount of data that is available, but really it's not knowing what there is. Sometimes, and actually quite often, it's not clean enough to be used as well. And that's where, right, we really push to leverage our AI capabilities to be able to pre-process that data, to clean that data, to extract the right features, and then obviously use that data to run the models as well. So really, and of course, all of this would be in real time, or most definitely near real time as well, right? So that's really where the power of data that does exist. Perhaps it is in silos, but it does exist, and which definitely can be leveraged to make to make use of in a industrial operational intelligence solution like ours. Tyler, were there any other questions
I
in the
just
chat?
scanned it. Yeah, and I mean you can see that the polls pop up as well, but I just scanned it.
Yeah.
Just there was just a couple more requests for the recording, which we'll definitely get that out to you guys. So that looks like that's about it. All right, Pujan, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I know these are a lot of effort to put together, but great presentation. Thank you so much. And to everybody that attended, we appreciate it. And like I said, we hope to see you at another talk very soon. All right, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thanks again, Pujan.
Hey, sure. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you joining in and looking forward to connecting with you all at some point down the road. Hope you have a great rest of the day and rest of the evening. Thanks.